Of course, there's been some real shock about the spate of airline incidents this week, with Qantas has had 4 planes turned around and forced to land early due to mechanical issues. 2 aircraft just today. Now, I love Qantas. It's the world's safest airline, and thankfully in each case, each plane has landed safely. The pilots, well, they've naturally been praised by customers for their skills. I've been in aircraft when these things happen, and it's cool, calm and collected. But it would be good to talk to somebody who knows a bit about it at the pointy end when things go wrong. And Richard de Crespigny, well, he's the bloke who safely landed an A380 with a failed engine back in 2010. Richard, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate to talk to you again. I interviewed you a long time ago about exactly what happened with you. But about this Qantas flight 144 from Auckland on Tuesday, what can you tell us? Lost control of one of its engines. Can you explain that?
Well, I believe it was about 1 hour out from landing in Sydney when it lost one of its 2 engines. I don't know the nature of the failure, but that then caused it to descend, and they declared a mayday and they landed in Sydney. Now, I have to stress that engines are very reliable in passenger aircraft. Engines only fail 1 in every 350,000 engine hours, which means that 1 in 9 twin-engine aircraft pilots will ever see an engine failure in their whole career. But it's still a surprise when it happens. The pilot declared a mayday, which is an indication of grave and imminent danger. And we don't know what happened in the cockpit. We weren't there. But I absolutely respect the authority of the captain to do that. He downgraded it to a pan later on. I think that was, for his situation as he saw it, I'm sure it was the right thing to do. And then they landed in Sydney, and I believe the captain actually was at the front door farewelling passengers, so he was trying to be empathetic with them. Yeah,
look, I've been on aircraft where safety ahead of schedule, and I have no complaints. Pilots are so well trained when situations like this occur. I mean, what kicks into gear for a pilot? How do you keep passengers informed but not stressed?
And you said safety before schedule, which is really important. You see, pilots are the last defence in an aircraft. We assume the maintenance has been done, the baggage is loaded correctly, all the fuel's on board. But when things go wrong, it's the pilot that has to recover the situation. When the engine goes bang, the lizard brain in our head, which part of that called the amygdala, triggers the fear response of fight, flight or freeze. And that only lasts about 30 seconds before the cortex comes online and we can be rational. But in those first 30 seconds, the passengers might be fearful and panicking. For pilots, they're being taught to do what we call aviate, navigate, communicate. So aviate is fly the aeroplane. So the pilots would have pushed up the thrust lever on the remaining engine to get full thrust. And navigate, he would have had to descend to where he was at the ceiling or the maximum altitude that he could fly on one engine, and then he could finally talk to the passengers. And so that's the first 30 seconds. After that, when the engine's been secured, then he could look at talking to the cabin crew and talking to the passengers. And what he will tell the passengers is to being aware of the fact he doesn't want them to panic. So he'll tell them what they need to know. He tells them the truth about what's happened, only when they need to know it. And he certainly won't tell them any truth if it has no effect on them, if they can't do anything for it. He'll delay that until they get closer to the airfield.
Yeah, and of course, with 2 pilots, this is important. There's a big debate about only having 1 in the cockpit. I mean, obviously, these situations, it's probably good to have a colleague side by side.
Oh, it'd be lunacy to have a single pilot in the cockpit. Just imagine all aviation since the Second World War has been designed to have 2 competent, licensed, experienced, well-trained pilots in the seats flying the aircraft. For 2 reasons. One, each pilot has different roles. One pilot's flying, the other one is activating checklists. He's also monitoring the pilot because humans always make mistakes. So the other pilot will monitor the flying pilot, make sure nothing's been caught. He'll be actioning checklists. And if it had been 1 pilot on that aircraft coming out of Auckland, he'd be battling to just manage a checklist, let alone talk to the cabin crew or air traffic control or Qantas or the fire services. It would be gross overload. So the concept of single pilot aircraft is ludicrous at the moment, but even when more intelligent computers come out, they can still only cater for what we call the known knowns. And for the known knowns, things that we can have procedures for, sure, that can be automated. But when things go wrong, it's outside the box, or what we call black swans. That's when you need pilots to create novel solutions that haven't been thought of before to solve unknown unknowns.
All right.
And that can never be sent to a computer.
All right, Richard, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Appreciate all that explanation.